I want to talk about the mediums before you get to film. Some people can't go out and shoot a film today, or that's a story they tell themselves. Some people can't do X today. What can they do to get their IP out there as soon as possible? What mediums do you know of?
What they can do, they can either write it in a book. They can write a book. That would be the best way that I can think of. Comic books, it costs way too much to hire an artist and all that stuff. But I think the best thing that you could do is write it in a book format. And actually, even if you do have the means to make a movie, I hear it is best to put the IP in a different form in order to test to see if it does have traction, if it does have an audience, whether that be in a book, whether that be in a comic book if you can afford it, because no matter what, making a comic book is cheaper than making a movie, depending on what kind of movie you want to make. But it is best to get your IP out in another form, then film, like before you film it, to see if people will like it. For example, The Martian. Have you heard the story about The Martian? Have you heard of the movie The Martian with Matt Damon?
Oh, I saw The Martian. I loved it.
Okay, cool. Do you know the origins of? Do you know that was a book first, right?
No, I did not.
Okay,
I
so
loved it.
This is what I heard about it. The author, the person who wrote the book, wrote chapters at first, and you used to post them online, and in the form of the book. I mean, the form of the movie, and people loved it. So he would just keep posting and posting and posting, and they were telling him, hey man, you need to start putting this stuff on Amazon, start selling it. He didn't care about making money from it. He just wanted to tell this story. But when you sell on Amazon, you have to charge something. So he charged 99 cents. More and more people bought it, and over 1 million people bought the book, bought the book. So then he was like, so he became basically a millionaire. So then he was like, okay. So then someone bought the film rights and made it into a movie, and it did really well. So because it was an intellectual property first, even though he didn't have the intention of ever making it into a movie, it was a book first. And since that book gained traction, the studios know, we can make this into a movie because there's already an audience.
Right.
Basically what Reese Witherspoon does with these number one bestsellers, there's already an audience.
There's already an audience.
Exactly.
You're adopting the audience.
Exactly. So the best thing that a young creator can do is play the long game. Find a way to make your movie idea into another form of IP in order to gather an audience and see if there is an audience there.
Yeah.
And so then when you pitch this idea to a movie studio, you can say, hey, I was able to make this into a book, and look at the audience that I have. Look at what I've been able to amass from this book. Just imagine if you made this into a movie. A lot of people just have movie ideas, and they're pitching these movie ideas to these movie studios or to these investors, and they're like, I'm not gonna invest in this.
There's no proof that it works.
Exactly. There's no proof of concept. Exactly. There's no IP for this. Almost everything that you see on TVs, movies, came from books, movies, and you just, what are you gonna say?
And this segues perfectly from our last episode. I don't know what order it's gonna drop in, but when Disney went to go make Lion King, they already knew Kimba the White Lion was one of the biggest films for 30 years in Asia. They knew that this film was dominating in another market, and that was why they're so confident moving forward with this and say, you know what, Lion King can be the next big thing because we already saw the last big thing.
Yeah.
And that's mitigating risk. It's all the same business. That's what you're trying to do is minimize your risk. And then something else I was going to say to that credit was, we become avid readers in this in our life. We adopted that probably like a year ago or so. And one of the books that we both like is Atomic Habits. And we like Atomic Habits. And I've also read The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F. And between those two books, both of those books started out as blogs. And I remember in Atomic Habits that James Clear was writing blogs every day. He talks about that. He's writing blogs every day since like 2013. In 2018, he had like 2 million subscribers. Like, I'm just put it all into a book. Bundled up in a book, and the book he already had.
Blew up.
It blew up because he already had an audience. Same with The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F. His was also a blog he started the same year as James Clear. Those two know each other. And he decided to bundle it all into a book in 2016. And then he got The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F. Now they're making The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F actual movie by Universal Studios. I make sure I got the studio right. I'm pretty certain. And partnered with Universal. And it goes to show if you have an idea, get it out into the world in some way, shape, or form as soon as possible. Cross your T's, dot your I's, protect it in whatever way you can. But the biggest thing is getting it out there in some format and letting that gain traction. Similar to our guy from Kansas City, Morgan Cooper, who ended up making the Bel Air trailer. Bel Air's second season on Peacock will be coming here in a matter of months.
Yeah.
All because he banked on himself. So really, those of you who have IP, those of you who have a vision, bring it to the real world, bring it to real light, and the sky's the limit. And the sky may be beneath your feet by the time you reach your heights. So.
Because with the way that I agree with everything that you said, because that's true. Because back in the day, back in the 90s, 80s, and 70s, you could get away with original ideas. Hollywood could get away with that because Hollywood back then not only made their money from movie tickets, but they also made their money from DVDs. I heard Matt Damon talk about this. So you could risk a movie being bad in the movie theaters, but if the DVD sales make up for it, then you're good.
Right.
Nowadays, with streaming, with DVDs becoming less and less important or being less made, now there's more risk to making original ideas. There's more risk to banking on an idea that no one's never heard of.
Yeah. It's true.
That's why Quentin Tarantino back then came into fame, because his movies were super original. Even though they were inspired from other projects, they were super original and super unique because that was his style. You're not going to see a lot of Quentin Tarantino's today.
Right.
The
gatekeepers, a lot of the people who would, be financing that are hesitant to finance it.
Right. And actually, let me rephrase that. You're not going to see there will never be another Quentin Tarantino, but you're never going to see, it's less likely today that you will see someone like Quentin Tarantino become successful because of the climate that we're living in Hollywood. Because back in Quentin Tarantino's days, it was all about original ideas, coming out with original projects and everything, taking risk on that. But nowadays, it's all about franchises, superheroes, Star Wars, Harry Potter, comic books, and everything. You know what I'm saying?
The silver lining is still there for anyone who wants to try. For example, the biggest thing is to get your work out there and to do it on a scale that makes sense for you. Jordan Peele made Get Out with $4.5 million. He's had 2 other films to follow that. He's going to have several more for the rest of his life, and there's only going to be one Jordan Peele. So, and that happened in 2017, which is not very long ago, right? When Get Out came out. And so it's still going to be those outliers that are going to make it through. It's because they have that much confidence in themselves to do so.
And he was in the industry for 12 years too, I believe, before he even came out with Get Out.
He already has 10,000 hours in making productions. He made them on a smaller scale. He made comedy skits. He made dramedy skits. He made a feature film before that called Keanu. Like he had the track record before that. Of course, you start celebrating him then, but he was already out there doing the thing. Another example is, and then from there, someone was inspired to do Parasite, and they said they're inspired because they saw Jordan Peele's work. Let's go into I'm gonna go back into the 90s when original ideas were so big. People like to say that, but it's not true. These original ideas were still based off of a lot of other content. For example, my favorite director is going to be James Cameron. It's not too rare of a director to say, but he made the Titanic, as we all know. He says he made the Titanic because he saw 2 documentaries about Titanic prior to that, and he was so intrigued by these documentaries about Titanic that just came out the same year. Titanic was founded in 1985. He made the movie. He got complete with the movie about 10 years later. He got complete with it in 97, but it was ready to go about 10 years later. Anyone can correct me where I'm wrong, but the idea was the boat went under 1912. It was discovered, we finally found it in 1985 due to these new machines that went underwater. And the documentaries are starting to surface of what we found and how we see it. And so we were really intrigued with the Titanic from the moment it disappeared to the moment it was rediscovered in 1985. In that 10 years, we were so intrigued with what they found down there, what machines could actually see. The Titanic is still underwater, by the way, and it's still sitting in the same spot. And the footage they used in the film was the first time we actually had footage of it due to the machines that are moving. Or, we should start getting footage of it. So there's a lot of obsession and talk around the Titanic prior to it being the springboard for the third or one of the top 5 highest grossing films of all time. Before there's that springboard, there's already talk around it. And so it's not like this was such a left field idea to do. The opportunity is there. The question, are you prepared for it? The question, are you have your 10,000 hours in once it comes?
Right. But the romantic story itself, which is what really sold the movie as well, on top of the Titanic itself, is the original idea that I'm talking about.
Yeah, he had a Romeo and Juliet story.
Yeah,
Romeo and Juliet story, and combine it with the boat, combine it with the tragedy and history of the Titanic. And they found Jack's letters down. Jack was real. Guys, look into this because it's such a mind twister. But they found letters from a guy whose name was Jack, of course, down there. Is one of there's a lot of items that are preserved over that 80 plus years, which or 70 years, which is amazing. Still today, there's a lot of items that are preserved.
Yeah.
And that's where those are pieces he built a story around. I'm trying to get at the no idea is completely original.
No, but when I say that original ideas, because a lot of ideas come from comic books. A lot of movies come from comic books and everything. When I'm talking about original, yes, we're all inspired from the stories that we write. No idea is 100% completely original, absolutely. But when I think of original ideas, I think of ideas that don't come from comic books, franchises, another medium is what I'm trying to say, before it became a movie.
But documentaries, but say
right, but that's a documentary about the Titanic.
That's Romeo and Juliet's not a medium.
But that's an inspiration. That's not, that story isn't Romeo. It has the architect of Romeo and Juliet, but it doesn't copy Romeo and Juliet verbatim.
It's a copy verbatim.
It's inspired, but it's not actually Romeo.
True.
It's not like they decided to It's not like they decided to make called Titanic Romeo and Juliet just on a boat. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And what James Cameron did is, celebrated across the world. I'm a huge fan of it. I'm a huge fan of his. It's not to take a shot at originality. I'm just trying to say, back to the fact that Beauty and the Beast was dated 4000 BC. We can't get mad at Disney for doing it in the 1900s, in the 20th century. We can't get mad at that. And I want people to know that this whole mitigating risk, this whole minimizing risk thing has been long before the 90s, long before Lion King. It's more of a banking system than it is a film system. And a lot of creatives get so hunched over, like, oh crap, people are not original anymore. No, they were very rarely original, because it's nothing to do with creativity. It's all about the banking system. What they want to give their money for, right? How much confidence do you have to give your money for said project? It's all it comes down to. It's nothing to do with, creatives cannot get their head out creativity. They can't get their head out of it. Like our heads are stuck up our butt when it comes to that. It's like, it's not about that. It's about the banking system.
But that banking system, here's the thing though. I understand where you're coming from, but if you were, say you're an investor, right?
Right.
You have this original project that doesn't come from anything. Yes, you can see that it's inspired from Romeo and Juliet or whatever, right? But you don't know if it's going to make money, but you see potential there, but you don't know. Versus a super popular comic book that's selling really well, like Invincible or something.
Right.
And you have the opportunity to make that into a movie. You know it's going to do well.
Right.
You know there's already an audience there, while one doesn't have an audience. Which one are you going to be more likely to give money to?
Exactly. The path of least resistance. That's what we're talking about, the path of least resistance, and how people are trying to minimize risk.
Yeah.
But and we all know James Cameron's story. And guys, it's not based off of Romeo and Juliet. I mean, it's based off what James Cameron wanted to write. What I'm trying to get at is, and James Cameron fought for his life to get that made. I heard. It was 200 million. He fought for the first 100 million from 20th Century, and he fought for the 75 million from Paramount, and then the rest of it he deferred part of his payment for, and he talks about this. He's a James Cameron fan. I know. I've listened to him tell it as many ways as it could be told. But at one point, people were looking at Lion King and thinking it was an original project. Most of us thought that for the first 20 years of our lives. Is it original? Yeah, I mean, as
The name.
as original as anything else.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
With that, with movies that are ripped from like examples like The Lion King, I can also name other movies that are super original. You know what I mean? That aren't inspired from anime in a sense.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it's just we have a prime example of The Lion King that is ripped straight from anime.
Right.
But
And it comes down to this whole quote when they say artists should never tell their inspiration. That's what it comes down to. That's what artists.
oh, I never heard that before.
Yeah, artists should never share their inspiration. That's what makes artists artists, because every artist steals. It's a quote long before. It's a quote long before Pablo Picasso. Like every artist, artists should never tell their inspiration. This is why they say that. And what I'm trying to share to you is all these are combinations of work that are created. Just like what you're referring to is someone taken from one source for someone taken from 3 different sources.
Right.
That's the biggest problem.
But that one source already has an audience and is already extremely popular though.
Which
you know what I mean?
For investors, the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
Which is taken up now.
Yeah. Versus combining 3 different, well, not even but taking aspects from 3 different sources and making that into one story, which is where, because everything's inspired. No idea is truly original.
Right.
Inception showed us that. But
humans have been in the same cycle for a minute. But here and there, guys, go out there, create your IP. Make sure you're not stepping on the toes of anything that came before you. Get it out in the world as quick as possible into any medium you possibly can.
Yep.
Have faith in yourself. Think on yourself. There's a lot of reward in it in the end for you. I assure you of that. Anything else you want to add to that?
No, just go out there and create. Be open-minded. It doesn't have to be a movie. Build it all. It
doesn't have to be a movie.
Doesn't have to be a movie at all. Just you got to start somewhere. But yeah,
you got to start somewhere. You don't have to be great to get started, but to get started to be great.
Exactly.